they say location, location, location in real estate. And that is very important. And it's especially important with multifamily because the way I look at it, you want to attract good tenants, right?
Welcome to the House Hacking Success Podcast, where you'll learn the path to free rent and financial freedom through real estate. Featuring your hosts, Brad Labrie and Drew Klingler.
Hey everyone, real quick before we start the show, Brad wrote an amazing ebook that will teach you everything you need to know about house hacking and living rent-free. To get a free copy, text HouseHack, all one word, to 22828. That's HouseHack, all one word, to 22828 to get your free copy.
Welcome to the show, Zach. We're happy you're here.
Glad to be on, guys.
Thanks, man. Tell us about your early life, getting in the environmental field, and what led you to real estate.
Yeah, so I went to a school in Massachusetts for college. I studied environmental science. I'm 27 now. I live in southeastern Massachusetts in a town called Mattapoisett. It's right in Buzzards Bay area. So I went for 4 years, environmental science, and when I got out, I started working for this consulting firm, and I worked there for 3 years. And what I found is putting in this time, and I'm not really learning anything. I'm not enjoying it too much. There's not really much work for me to do, and I'm not having that level of fulfillment. Found myself in my office cubicle, like, twiddling my thumbs, trying to, what can I do for work? Like going around, and I'm a highly self-motivated person. Felt like I didn't want no work to do. So I'd be going around the project manager's offices asking, hey, what can I do to help? Is there any work I can do? And no one really had much. So I was gut worried that of my level of job security, not having work, I could be let go. I don't have any income coming in if I lose that job. So I started building my resume and looking for other jobs. And I found this opportunity with a startup firm. Ended up getting that position. That position had a ton of travel involved. And I saw it as an opportunity to get ahead. My salary went from $38,000 a year to $85,000 with a ton of travel. So it allowed me to save quite a bit. But I was gone week after week, month after month, finding myself in this continuous cycle of living for the weekend. I mean, I'm saving this money. I have no time. I don't have time to spend with my loved ones. No time to do anything really besides Saturday, and then Sunday was spent doing my laundry, getting ready for the next week of travel. So I started searching for answers. I mean, I was spending my time on these planes, like watching movies, playing a game on my phone, just spending that time not very wisely. Like, how can I better this time? How can I maximize my efficiency on these flights to really better myself and get ahead? So I started listening to podcasts, reading books. That led to Millionaire Next Door, which started talking, so to backtrack a little bit, I started looking at like wealth building books. What can I start reading to get ahead? And it's funny, like these two books that were highly recommended were the Rich Dad Poor Dad and The Millionaire Next Door. So after reading the reviews, Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was saying, it's mostly a real estate book. I was like, real estate? How can I do that? I don't have any time. I don't have any money. How can I dive into real estate right now? So I went with The Millionaire Next Door, and I started reading that one. And they touched upon real estate many times throughout that book. So that's when it sparked my interest more and more. I was like, all right, what is this real estate thing? It sounds like I got to start learning about this. Went on the podcast, typed in real estate, and like Bigger Pockets pops up. So I became obsessed. Like, that's what I was listening to day in and day out. Like, my travel didn't just involve on flights. I had to do a lot of driving too when I landed. Like, we had many sites across the region, across the country. So I did a lot of flying and a lot of driving. So a lot of that time was spent either reading, listening to podcasts, and that started that desire to want to learn more and more. The desire eventually led to like burning desire. Like, I need to fill myself with this, which eventually led to this is a necessity. I need to start learning this real estate thing. How can I immerse myself in it and learn as much as I possibly can?
And it's kind of interesting, like those two concepts, the book, The Millionaire Next Door and Rich Dad Poor Dad, are almost totally polar opposites in a sense. And yet, if you merge the two concepts together, you get kind of like what you're doing. Like you were able to save at a high level, which allowed you to have the down payment. We'll talk about in a little bit the down payment situation that you had, right?
Exactly.
But without the merger of the two, sometimes people get lost on one side or the other, and they never actually fulfill what they actually set out to do.
Yeah, so like it started with that desire to want to learn more. And what I found is as I started teaching myself more and more about it, that desire turned into, do I actually want this? Do I actually want to dive into this? Because I wasn't really applying what I was learning. I was doing all this learning, but not actually taking the action to make it happen, take the next actionable steps to let's do it. So that desire eventually led into a necessity where I need to make this happen. So since I was traveling, I didn't really have the time to look at properties when I got home. So my weekends, when I got back, I just started looking at as many properties as I possibly can. I met with some local real estate investors to network and learn more. And what they had told me is to start seeing as many properties as you can, 75 to 100. And you'll start to really understand what things cost, what you want to look for in your local market, and where you want to buy. So I applied that. And as I started to see, because when I first started looking, I couldn't tell the difference between a 10-year roof and a brand new roof. I wasn't very handy. I didn't know what things cost fixed up. I didn't know what a good price was in my area. So what I found is as I started seeing as many as I could, I narrowed down my region where I was looking, because I started at a wide market, many areas, many towns. And that kind of, as I saw more and more properties, that narrowed down where I really want to look and where I want to hone in to maximize my time on the weekends,
Tell us about your first house hack. How did you find it? How did you fund it? You talked about looking at about 100 properties. Like, how did you find this one and pick this one?
Yeah, so the way I found this one, like you said, I'd seen roughly between 75 and 100 properties, kind of lost track after the first 30 or so. So what that allowed me to do is I really started to hone in on my locations, or what some people consider your farm area. So I started in a wide region, narrowed it down to, okay, these are the spots where I really want to focus on. This is where I like to buy. And seeing dozens and dozens of properties, it also taught me where I didn't want to buy and what types of properties I wanted to avoid, and what rehab costs will be. It also taught me, okay, this property is $300,000. This property is $200,000. Why is that? Why is there such a big difference here? And seeing as many as I did, it taught me just that. With the travel, I wasn't able to look at properties right when they came on the market. I could only see them on the weekends, and they were going pretty quick. So I was in Louisiana at the time of this one that I ended up buying hit the market. It was about midnight, and it just came on. I was like, this is the one I need to get. It just clicked. It was in the area that I really wanted to get in. So I knew it was in a good spot. And the reason why, they say location, location, location in real estate. And that is very important. And it's especially important with multifamily, because the way I look at it, you want to attract good tenants, right? So I consider myself a good tenant. I pay on time. I'm respectful to the landlord, and I respect the property. So I want to buy in a location that someone like me would want to live in. Mm-hmm. So this one was in an area that I would live in. It came at a good price point. And since I had seen so many properties, I knew what a good price point was. And I was looking through the photos, like, all right, this doesn't look that bad. It looks mostly cosmetic. There's ugly rugs. There's nasty wallpaper. There's coloring on the walls. The only thing that was up with this one is they only had photos of 2 of the units. So I knew something was not right with the second floor unit. Mm-hmm. So I put in a full price offer. The asking price wasn't bad. It was actually, they were asking $225 for it. So I put in an offer at $225 when I was in Louisiana. I was nervous because I'm putting in an offer on something that I haven't even seen. And I'm new to this. I don't have a property yet. Like, what are you doing? You're putting
And
in an offer.
it shows how much you trusted yourself and your numbers and the time you spent looking at other properties.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I was nervous. This wasn't a quick decision. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's put in an offer. I was at work. I was pacing back and forth. I was supposed to be focusing on the job, but I just couldn't. I was on the phone with my realtor. I didn't have my license at the time. And yeah, she kind of talked me through that. Your way out is the inspection. If something pops up, even a little thing that you don't like, that scares you, or something unexpected, you can back out. You're not trapped into this 225 offer, and you can always renegotiate after that. And that's exactly what I did. And I put in that offer. I found out it got accepted that night. I was at a restaurant down in Monroe, Louisiana, and yeah, that was my first offer that was accepted, and it was very exciting, but nerve-wracking at the same time. It's just because now I actually have this offer accepted on a sight unseen. What's the next step? The inspection. So yeah, we have the inspection. I mean, there wasn't anything crazy with it. It was the structure, it was good structure. The mechanics were there. The roof was about 10 years old, so at about a little under its half-life. Electric had been updated. Plumbing had been updated. So it was exactly what I've been looking for. Through reading through my real estate books and listening to Bigger Pockets and other podcasts, I learned that I wanted to find a property. The mechanics were sound. So the big ticket items like the roof, plumbing, electrical, and the heating system, and to look for where you can add value through cosmetic updates. Like I said, there was the rugs were nasty. They needed to be painted, new cabinets, things like that. Nothing major. And so I was able to knock it down the price by about $15,000 after the inspection, because the inspector found that the bathroom floors were soft. So he was kind of worried that there was rot under there, and the sellers heard that, and I think that scared them a bit. It ended up being just about there was a lot of rot under there, a little over $1,000 to fix it up, but I think that startled them a bit. So yeah, we were able to leverage that as a negotiation tool.
And that's a great point. With the contingencies that you talk about going into properties, you have the ability to renegotiate. And a lot of people don't really understand that. There's a client right now that's buying a duplex out by me, right? And he's in that period where he's now renegotiating, right? They found some things, they found termites, right? You have that ability to renegotiate. And so transition a little bit and talk to us about right when you got past the inspection period, you're supposed to put 3.5% down, if I remember correctly, and your underwriters told you had the ability to switch out. Tell us about that and what you learned from that whole process.
Yeah, the original plan was to put the 5% down, which was going to be around $14,000, I believe. And I was getting to that. It was at the same time of around closing, I was getting to that breaking point with the job where I just couldn't handle the travel anymore. And this company had reached out to me with an opportunity to work locally. So I reached out to my lender and I asked them, will we have any issues with the closing if I were to switch jobs right now? And the two questions he asked me were, are you going to be in the same field and for similar pay? And both of those questions hit the checkbox. Like, the pay was similar. I was in the same field. But what I didn't know and what he didn't ask me was if it was a full-time job or not, because it was a contract job. And I, being new, I didn't know that this was a red flag on the lending side. And you always hear, don't change your job before closing. I knew that. And I still learned the hard way. Where I made my mistake was that I had asked him the same question 3 times. I asked him, I called the same guy up. Are you sure that this is okay? I can switch my job before closing? He's like, I'm pretty confident. Let me check with the underwriter on Monday. Calls me on Monday. Yes, Zach, you're in the clear. I checked with the underwriter. You can change your job. I'm like, yes, I can get out of the travel. I can still close on this property with 5% down. Things are looking good. And then it kind of plummeted. Later in the week, I found out that they could not do the 5% down because of that the contract job. It's not full time, so I had to bring 20%. So I just went from around $14,000 down to $45,000 down on this property. So huge jump, and $45,000 was about what I had saved cash ready to go in my bank account, which was allotted for the down payment, my repair costs, and my saving up for my next house hacking property. So that kind of put me at a halt. Like, what am I going to do now? Luckily, I've always been a good saver. That's something my dad had always taught me growing up, is to live below your means and save, save, save. I was still able to close on the property. My parents have always been so supportive of what I want to do. So they were able to lend me some cash. And I also took money out of my 401k account to just kind of worked as a loan to myself, which I have to pay back. But I was able to get me into that property and still have my reserves that I need, because I know $45,000 was enough to close on it, but it was not enough for my rehab, which I had budgeted another $20,000 for the rehab, which wouldn't have been there unless I had been so good at saving and putting money aside. But like I said, I've always been good at saving, but I never knew what I was saving for. What am I saving for? Until I found this house hacking strategy, and I was like, this is it. This is what I've been saving for, and this is what I have to do. So I'm thankful I was still able to make it happen.
Awesome. So like, what have you learned from this deal? Putting tenants in, things like that. Like, what did you learn?
I learned the importance of being like preparedness, having that money, having the reserves on the side in case things go south, because they will. You will face challenges. You will face disappointments along the way, but as long as you persist and keep taking actual steps forward, you'll be able to make it happen. I also learned the importance of being in a good location too, because going through the rehab in the second floor apartment, so it's a 3-family, right? The one that I bought, I inherited a 3rd floor tenant. The second floor I had evicted before closing. I never met these people, but I saw that the way that they were living, they were everyone. The first time going into the second floor, I saw that so every square foot of that apartment was a bed, besides the bathroom and the kitchen, just beds everywhere, and 2 full-size refrigerators, and in every closet a mini refrigerator. So I was like, how many people are living in this one apartment? So we had them gone before closing, and I was going to occupy the first floor. So after fixing up the second floor, it took we did like vinyl plank flooring and painted the walls, painted the cabinets, new light fixtures, things like that. And so the importance of the location, we were able to find a tenant within a week. Like, I had hundreds of people reaching out to me about this apartment.
Awesome. So tell us about, you did a lot of off-market marketing, right, to properties that are off-market. You did some handwritten letters. Talk about that process and some of your success with getting some return letters.
So through my search for the first property, it was discouraging at times. I was looking at a lot of properties online and seeing a lot on my weekends. Prices were going up, and up, and the numbers just were not working out in my favor. So I had pretty much given up on the MLS, and I've been going to a lot of real estate investor meetups, and they talk about direct mail marketing, using ListSource to filter through criteria, things like that. So one of the guys that I met, I consider him a mentor. I presented him with what I wanted to send out, my criteria, like certain people that had certain equity in a building, how long they've lived there, it's vacant, things like that. And he was like, Zach, it's a good idea. It's good that you're taking steps to doing direct mail marketing. But what about this? What if you mailed to people who are going through evictions? What if you mailed to those types of owners? And that kind of clicked, because it started to get me thinking, like, now that's a motivated seller. That's not something I had been thinking about. It got my mind thinking, all right, what other ideas are out there that I'm not thinking about? So I started doing that. I started writing handwritten letters to people going through evictions. So the way you do that is, in Massachusetts anyways, there's the Mass Court site, and you can go on and see all the eviction cases. It takes a bit more work because you have to filter through who the plaintiff is and figure out who the owner is, and then go on the assessor's page and find their actual mailing address. So I was putting in a lot of time. And this actually really helped me hone in on my location where I wanted to buy too, because it allowed me to understand where the evictions are happening. So I wanted to avoid those spots. So I wanted to find a property where the landlord is going through an eviction and it's in a good location. And the reason why that is because I see that as a landlord who's not very good at managing their properties. They're in a good location. You shouldn't be going through an eviction, it's less likely that you will be. Anyone who's going through eviction, find that property on Google Maps. And if it's in a good spot, all right, I'm mailing them. And that's what I did. I just started writing handwritten letters. I set target to write 20 a day. That way, by the time the weekend came, I would have about 100 to send out. And I didn't end up getting my first property that way, but it taught me a lot, allowing me to practice that dialogue with potential motivated sellers. So my first round, there was this one property that was a 10 unit, and I was like, out of all the letters, I want this one to answer me. And I remember just being at the job site, and I got this call from a number. I didn't really think it was going to be one of my callers, and I pick up. I was like, "Hey, hey Zach, this is Maurice." I was like, who's that? Who's Maurice? He's like, you mailed me. I own a 10-unit property in Bedford. My heart just dropped. I didn't know what to say. I was so nervous because this is the one I wanted to respond. I didn't know how to respond to this guy, so I was just stumbling through my words. But I was able to collect myself and talk to him about the property and gather the information I needed, and ended up setting an appointment to go view it. Most of the properties I've been seeing were 2, 3, 4 unit buildings. So to see a 10 unit and get that experience was eye-opening. And I was like, it taught me that this process actually works. Like my response rate was between 10 and 20% with the handwritten letters. And and every letter I wrote was the best letter I was sending out. With every line, it was going to be the best letter no matter what. With that job that I was traveling, I didn't have much time for this. I was studying for my realtor's exam. I was looking for my first property, so I would be working long hours. I'd be getting back to my hotel rooms by 8 or 9 o'clock after squeezing in a quick workout at the fitness room.
So transitioning into that, like becoming an agent, what has that process like? Has it given you a new perspective? Being an agent, being an investor is one thing, but then dealing with different, clients and seeing it from a different world where you're contractually looking at real estate and there's unique situations. You got to get things to closing. You got last minute situations with credit or whatever. Talk to being an agent and like the new perspective that has given you.
Right. Yeah. So being an agent has taught me that everyone has different goals in real estate. Not everyone wants to be an investor. Not everyone wants to build a portfolio of rental properties. Some people don't want to deal with tenants. Most people don't actually. So it was enlightening because what other strategies are there where people can save money without owning a multifamily property? So it got me thinking, and everyone has different goals. So you have to kind of figure out what they want and help them find that property, whatever they're looking for, whatever property they're looking for. That's what I'm going to help them do and help them accomplish the goals that they have.
Cool. You got a really impressive story so far. A lot of due diligence, looking at 75 to 100 properties to find that first house hack, sending out 100 letters a week. Could you speak a little bit to your battle within yourself and when you were at your old career, when you knew you weren't reaching your potential? And what would you tell someone in a similar position today?
Someone in a similar situation as me. So what I found myself was like a lack of fulfillment. I'm putting in all this effort, all this time, this hard work into something that isn't bringing me a full sense of fulfillment. And I need to do something to change that. So what I would say to someone going through that same situation is do what you can with what you have. And if you have just a little, do just a little, but keep taking actionable steps to move forward. a lot of people, they underestimate what they can do in a month. I mean, they overestimate what they can do in a month, but underestimate what they can accomplish in, say, a year, 5 years, 10 years. So I listen to a lot of motivational videos. I really like Jim Rohn and Les Brown. And something Jim Rohn had said is that you need to discover that you're not a goose, right? So what that means is, so the goose flies south every winter. Why? Because it's a goose. You could tell it to go north. You could tell it to go west. You could give it reasons why going west is better this year. But it's not going to listen because it only knows one thing, and that's to fly south. But human beings are different. You can change the trajectory of your life. And it's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a week. But just keep taking actionable steps forward every day, just daily disciplines to move forward and make a change in your life if you're not happy where you're at. So what I did is I was making good money at that job, but I didn't have the time to enjoy life, and so what this house hack actually allowed me to do was to step down from that job, step down from a higher paying job and get something that's a little less paying, a little less of a salary, but opens up my free time. So now I can pursue those passions. I can pursue what I want to do in life. And what I think a lot of people do, and through my travels, through my experiences meeting these people at airports, is a lot of people get trapped. A lot of people get trapped in something because financial reasons. They have a mortgage, or they're paying rent, and this job that they have kind of traps them because they pay them just enough to continue that cycle, right? And they don't have the courage to step down from that job because they have these bills they need to pay. They don't stop that job and actually pursue what they want to do. So house hacking can actually allow you to do that because it can minimize one of your biggest payments. So people's biggest financial burdens are their mortgage, their rent, and a car payment. Mm-hmm. So house hacking allows you to either wipe that out completely, and instead of paying, say, $1,000 a month in rent, you can be living for free, or maybe even earning some money each month.
And for most people, those two things make up over 50% of their budget every month, right? Just a car payment and just the mortgage payment or rent. And, and that's the power of house hacking. So that's a great point. People really do overestimate what they do in, a month or a year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. To that point, what separates potential house hackers, like people that like that idea, the fact that, they can eliminate that, from people that actually do it like yourself?
What separates people from actually house hacking, I believe, is the fear, the opinions of others, and the what ifs. So what if you have to go through an eviction? What if the roof collapses? What if your property catches on fire? Like all these things that may not actually happen. And all these what ifs. So I might as well not even try. I might as well not even look into it because of what could happen. Well, you have to think, what if I don't do it? Because that's a fear too. Being trapped in a position where you're not happy, or you're not feeling fulfilled. You're not actually taking steps to improve your situation. A lot of people face challenges in life, and it's the way that you handle those challenges. And everyone starts at different points. Everyone starts at different positions in life and faces different challenges, but it's how you get through those. And I know my challenge was the travel, not being around the people I love. And what it really taught me is that how precious time is. Because even though I wouldn't be traveling my whole life, but it got me to realize that this is what working for someone forever is like. My time is not spent working for me, A lot of people put in more effort into their actual jobs than they do themselves, building themselves and teaching themselves new things to allow them to pursue their dreams and passions.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. I mean, house hacking can be an exit strategy to an unfulfilling job, an unfulfilling life. And it's the first step into living a fulfilling life, which you've been able to accomplish now. You left a job that you weren't super passionate about, and you're able to pursue more passionate stuff. And you took that pay cut to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And now you have that asset that you speak of as time. So we talk about books a lot on the show. Brad and myself love to read. Could you tell us one of your favorite business or mindset books?
I'd say my favorite mindset book or business book is the Millionaire Next Door, because that one kind of got me into it. That opened my mind to, because I'd always been, they talk about living under your means, living below your means in that book, and I've always been good at that. But I didn't know why. Why am I doing this? Why am I saving this money? And they touched upon real estate, and it just opened my mind to this option, the option of real estate, and to look into it more. So it's kind of it was the start of the snowball effect for me. It got me into reading other books. It got me into listening to podcasts, and which led to listening to Bigger Pockets and just taking action on what they actually tell you to do. That's the most important thing with the books that you read and the podcasts you listen to, or any information you get from people doing what you want to do, is actually listening to what they have to say and taking action on what they say. You can take in all the information, and it doesn't do any good if you don't do anything with it. It allowed me to get started. So,
absolutely.
But I listened. So I mentioned that I listened to Jim Rohn and Les Brown. That's where I get a lot of my motivation from. Are you like YouTube videos from those guys? Les Brown talks about a lot about the possibility of living your dreams, while Jim Rohn talks about a similar concept, but more of a philosophical approach, like the mindset of people and why people succeed and why others don't, why people face their challenges, or why people are crippled by their challenges.
Absolutely. So what about real estate book? Like what book taught you the most about real estate, or which one do you relate to most?
My favorite real estate book is the book on managing and rental properties by Brandon and Heather Turner. So the reason why that one is, it taught me a lot about just how to screen tenants, because you get so many inquiries from people about the apartment, especially after it's fixed up and looks nice and shiny. What do I do now? What do I do to fill this? Because you've taken all the steps to get there, right? You got the property, you fixed it up. Now what? How do I properly screen these people to get the right person in there so they don't destroy the asset that I've been working on and building? So that book taught me how important it is for the screening process. So, and I applied what I learned in that, which is, so I set a list of minimum qualification standards, and I stick to those with every person that applies or inquires about the property. I do a pre-screening phone questionnaire and weed people out that way. And from there, I will show them the property, and if things check out and they're within my standards, then I go forward and allow them to go through a criminal and background check. It's funny, the first night I posted the property for rent, the very first call I got was from this girl who calls in. Her one question to me was, so if someone were to move in with bed bugs, would you exterminate the apartment or the entire building? So I'm thinking, well, this property is completely renovated. It's brand new. So if someone were to move in with bed bugs, they would be responsible for the extermination process. And she was like, oh, okay. And do you have any more questions? No, that's it.
That was my
question. That was my first call. And I was like, what am I getting into here? That's going to be interesting. But that was the funniest question I've had. But that book,
that's awesome.
The book on managing rental properties, just taught me the process of how to get the right people in there and how to run it like a business. Because a lot of landlords fail, or a lot of investors fail, because they don't treat it like a business. They treat it like a hobby. Like they don't understand the importance of getting the right people in there and how to actually keep track of all your expenses and keep files organized. It was eye-opening to how important that was, and the things I need to do to optimize this asset.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Zach. If someone was in your area or just wants to learn more about you, because you're pretty active on Instagram and you got a really inspiring story, and I know a lot of people relate to you, kind of where you were in your career, right? The fact that you had enough saved to go from 5% to 20% down is a huge testament to yourself. You're as well an agent, so if somebody want to work with you and understand numbers and understand how you were able to persist through, looking at 100 properties and still continuing, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so you can look me up on Instagram. It's Zach Midwood Real Estate. So Zach_Midwood_real estate.
And we'll put that in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah, and you can also reach me on my email at zachmidwood@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to help. I really like helping the person who is just below where I'm at now, the person looking for their first property and not really sure of the steps to take or where to begin. Those are the people, and what I found through the process of this first property is I love inspiring and motivating people, especially the ones just before where I'm at. Because that's where I was, not just a little over a year ago, just going through the education phase and learning and taking in all this information. How do I actually do this?
Yeah. You're a true testament to taking action, and just getting it done and persisting. So you have a really great story, and I know a lot of people will be inspired by it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, all right, Zach, we appreciate you coming on, man. You have a great day.
Yeah, you too, guys. It was nice chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. We appreciate it. We'll see you. Thanks for listening. If you could do me a huge favor and go give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, I would really appreciate it. It would really help us out. If we provided any value, please go do that. Otherwise, there's a lot of people who haven't subscribed, so go ahead and go subscribe and you'll get notifications when a new podcast episode is released. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.